Welcome to the Halo Forge epidemic. This is Psychoduck, and today I'm here with a design talk video. And the topic for this one is going to be sort of map scaling and segmentation and how those two concepts work together. So basically what I'm talking about here is how big maps play. And they are, this is sort of a function of both the actual physical size of a map as well as the amount of segmentation on a map. So when we're talking about size itself, that is obviously very important, but it's not as if there is a direct proportional relationship between the amount of square footage on a map and how large a map actually plays, because segmentation plays a big role in that as well. So there's actually this sort of rule of thumb which some people use, which is to say that 4v4 maps should be about the size of a grid in Forge, and I understand this is a rule of thumb. It's not supposed to be definitive, but I think it's actually a rather flawed idea because A, it fails to take any sort of vertical overlap or anything like that into account, and B, it fails to take any segmentation into account. And segmentation is incredibly important for how big a map plays or how big a map feels. The more segmented a map is, the less interaction players can have over a wide area of the map, right? So if a map is very segmented into these very separate little areas, it is, a player in one area is unable to interact with a player in another area. So the map starts to play bigger because it starts to play a little slower. Players are coming into contact with each other less frequently. And when I'm talking about this segmentation, I'm talking about two things. The main thing is segmentation via line of sight. So obviously if I can't see you because there's a wall in between us, the two areas we're in are segmented by a wall. They're physically segmented. But there is also segmentation through distance. And of course that is where, even if I can see you, there's nothing physically coming between us. You are beyond the optimal range of my precision weapon, my battle rifle usually. And so therefore, even though I can see you, we're kind of separated by distance. And of course, Halo Reach actually introduced some problems in that regard, with the DMR being sort of the replacement for the BR, just because that weapon had so much range. All these, sort of older design philosophies sort of fell apart. These map designs that were based off of segmentation by distance didn't work, so that's why Hemorrhage in Reach just didn't play very well, because you could shoot clear across the map, which completely changed the way the map played, because it was previously segmented by distance. So if a map is really open, it might start to play smaller because players can interact across a wider range of areas on the map, right? But if a map is so open that maybe it's still got the distance segmentation because the lines of sight are so long, it's still not going to play very small. And B, if the map is so open that players are just getting cut down when they try to move anywhere, and they're just wading across these flat open fields to get anywhere and just getting cut down by BR fire, it's not going to play small because because the players can't get anywhere because they just die. It's going to play very slow. But so this relationship between how segmented a map is and how large it is kind of what determines how big it actually plays. So if you look at a map like Standoff, that map is very much segmented by distance, and that's why you get these kind of cool standoffs, because you can see enemy players but you can't really interact with them in a physical sense. You can't really shoot them with anything, but you can still see them, and you get that kind of interaction there. And some maps, which even though they might be rather small in terms of square footage, they're so segmented by walls and such that they actually play pretty big, because you get this sort of cat and mouse gameplay where you can't see your opponent because there are so many walls, and you end up kind of just wandering around hoping to run into them. So that's something to be particularly mindful of on like a 1v1 map is, if you can never see your player from far, or your opponent, sorry, from far away, and like sort of predict where they're going, it becomes much less deliberate in how you play the map. You kind of just wander around and hope to find someone. I guess the point of all this is to get you guys thinking a little more. I mean, some of you do already, but to maybe think a little more about the relationship between map size and segmentation. And of course, porosity is sort of another concept which relates to this. When I talk about porosity, I mean less the extent to which a map is segmented in terms of lines of sight, but more how easy it is to move throughout the map, how many routes there are. And some people kind of like to make maps a little too porous. Some people like to have, they just start putting routes and more routes and more routes, and they have this really porous play space with so many different ways to get from point A to point B that it becomes somewhat unfocused, and each route sort of loses its real purpose because there are these redundant routes. So that kind of plays into the scaling thing, but just in general, it's just something that I see some less experienced forgers doing, and I get it. I was there at one point. It feels good to like start connecting areas by these routes to say, oh, I could put a path here and to put it there. But sometimes you got to think about whether or not that path is really necessary, and sometimes it's not. So those are all kind of interesting concepts, and you can learn a lot about this stuff just from looking at existing maps. You can look at a lot of big team maps if you want to think about that sort of distance by, or segmentation by distance thing, and just looking at other maps to see you want to strike that right balance between size and segmentation, and like I said, making sure that players can interact with their opponents from one area to the next. You don't want a map to play as a series of completely separate areas, usually completely separate fighting spaces. You want those different spaces to actually be able to interact with each other, both in a physical sense where players can actually shoot each other from one area to the next, and also in a more of the sense of players like playing mind games with each other and predicting where their opponents are moving because they can see them from across the map or from one area to the next. And if these different areas don't interact with one another, then you kind of just have a collection of separate areas rather than a single cohesive map. So those are all some interesting things to think about. Maybe these can help in designing whatever kind of map. So hopefully you guys find this helpful or interesting or something. And if you do, just leave a comment and tell me what you think. And as always, feel free to leave suggestions for future Design Talk videos. I'm always open to hearing them. And we'll see about covering some of the suggested topics. So thanks for watching, guys. This has been Psychoduck with the Halo Forge Epidemic, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.